Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast.
All right, well, it's time to make this happen for you, Empjoyees. Heyo, Nemo here. Then let's be real here. Rejection isn't pleasant. Oftentimes, just the prospect of someone just going out there and saying, like, maybe I might have to face rejection is enough to keep us from actually doing anything at all. And it's actually interesting. I heard a quote the other day from one of my coaches from afar. His name's Rich Litvin, and he had said, "No isn't a destination, but it is the path." And I felt that was really important thinking back to this conversation with Claudio Vallejo, because we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that really struck me was his resilience in the face of no, and how he basically said no to no time and time again in order to get him into a place where he's truly feeling enjoyment. And that's important for us because we want to be focusing on the joy that's there. Like, why are people doing this thing here? Why are people getting into these roles? Because it's more than just changing your career. Like, we'll be able to help you do that. Like, trust me, if you're listening to this podcast, I know with every ounce of being in my body that you can have a successful career in tech, and you can have a successful career in anything that you really put your mind to. What we're trying to do here is help you see how others have found that joy so that you don't end up settling for something that's not you, or just staying on your default path and wherever you are right now because it feels unobtainable. And for any of you that are listening to this that are on the cusp, you think that you might be ready for a career in tech, or you're already working in tech and you're like, I'm ready for the next thing, but I don't know what it is. I don't know how to get there. I want to move it out of the idea of theory and conceptualizing and hearing how other people have done it, and give you a chance to create your own story and find your own enjoyment, find your own joy through employment. And so to do that, I'm going to offer you a gift. I'm going to offer you a gift of being able to sit with me to go through your journey and explore your possibilities through a one-on-one complimentary exploration session with Nemo. Here goes the deal. I'm not sure I'll be able to do this past the month of October. Just already seeing how others are taking me up on this offer. But while I can, I want to make sure I'm putting myself out there and doing that extra bit for you. I should give you a heads up. This is not mentorship. This is not advice. I'm not a consultant. I'm a coach, and I'm here to help you understand what you want out of your career and out of your life, and then how you can build a roadmap to get there. It's a fun time. We get deep. We really put it all out on the table, and an opportunity to give you one block of time where you can come fully as you are, be appreciated for who you are, and be challenged to be more of who you are. If you're ready for that, if you're interested in moving forward on your journey, then come over to empjoyment.com/coaching and schedule your complimentary one-on-one coaching session with Nemo. We'll go ahead and we'll explore your paths and help you create a roadmap to success from there. I'm excited for you because, quite frankly, I'm already seeing positive results from those that have taken me up on it, and the emails that are coming back with the revelations that they've had and the transformations that have occurred, even just from just a few hours of diving into their own futures, has been just quite phenomenal. I want that for you, but you need to want it for yourself as well. So go over to empjoyment.com/coaching and you can apply for one of the coaching opportunities that I'm offering as a gift to you and other employees. If for some reason you're saying, oh, he means everyone else other than me, that's not correct. I mean you specifically. It's your time, and we're here for you. And now it's time for today's episode with Claudio. Go forth, listen to this, and remember to do what brings you joy every day. I'll catch you on the flip side. Enjoy. What is up, employees? How are you? And welcome to the Empjoyment Podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you find enjoyment through employment. We are joined today by Claudio Vallejo, who is a product designer at Managed by Q, working on making it easy to run and manage an office. Claudio was born and raised in northeastern Mexico and studied business at Baylor University, where he discovered his passion for design. Prior to joining Q in New York City, he was freelancing as a web designer and developer in Mexico and worked for Parametro as a web designer. Claudio, I am so excited to explore how you found enjoyment today. Thank you for taking the time to join us and to share your story. We're really, really excited to find out how you have found and experienced enjoyment through employment. So we've read a little bit about you professionally. We'd love to get to know you more personally, though. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your life, love, work, and passion?
Of course, yeah, and thank you for having me, Nemo. It's great to meet you, and it's great to to share my story. And so I grew up in northeastern Mexico. I come from a border town on the Mexican side, and border town with Texas in the U.S. And yeah, I went to school every morning in the U.S., so I had to cross the border every day to go to school, which was interesting. It was a unique experience. And then after that, I went to college in the U.S. I studied business. And after studying business, I freelanced for the following 3 years after college. And right now I'm at Q, and, I'm having a great time. I'm learning a lot. This is my first job as a product designer, so there's definitely a lot to learn. And other than product design, I enjoy programming, I enjoy reading, and I enjoy anything that has to do with staying fit, eating healthy, and going to the gym and stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Oh, that's nice. I just made a renewed commitment to getting healthy and getting fit this morning. And I am putting it out into the world during the podcast right now so that y'all can come in and say, like, Nemo, how's it going? Are you actually taking up on this? Do you have any suggestions for someone that is like looking to build that part? I think that with enjoyment, we're looking at our entire lives, our holistic lives, and, health and fitness comes into play. Any just like quick tip for anyone that's just like maybe getting started or looking for something? What's your favorite thing that you like to do?
Yeah. I think finding a sport or like a physical activity that you enjoy doing is the best way to start, being active. I personally enjoy going to the gym, and I don't really like doing cardio, but the gym has worked for me over the past, 6 years since I was in college. And to be honest, like I also have to recommit, after several months, because I start sucking off or something. But, I think it's the constant recommitting. And also, finding something that you like is what I think will lead to like a lifelong habit or an activity that you can not dread doing every day.
Wow. I think like, as you're saying this here, it's already making me think, I'm like, wow, I'm going to apply this not just to my fitness routine, but also just like things that I do in life here. I feel like that's just like a good place to be. Like, find something in life that you like, and then just use that to help fuel you and really recommit. That's such a great way to start off this conversation, Claudio. And I'd love to continue like with this mindset here of like just helping us see the world as you see it. So would you mind giving us a success quote or mantra or some kind of motto that you use to kind of shape the way that you approach the world?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a big quote fan, or not a big, quote collector. But one thing that I try to keep in mind, especially as I was, starting out in design or finding what I like, because I think that's something that not until I was in college and found design that I hadn't really realized I was not doing things that I liked until I found design. And I think one important thing that I've kept in mind since I found design is that it's very important to own your mistakes. And by that, I mean, make decisions for yourself. I don't mean like do everything for you, and like it's not about selfishness. I'm not referring to that, but rather, like if you make a mistake, or if you make a decision and it ends up not working out, it's okay. Like, own it up and say, you know what? I made the decision. I failed. It didn't work out, and that's okay. I'll keep moving and I'll find something else that will work. And that mentality is one that I kept as I was, like exploring in design, because to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going, and I made many mistakes throughout those 3 years, and I keep doing them. But it's like owning up to your mistakes. I think that gives, a sense of satisfaction of, I don't know. I'm learning as I make mistakes, and through those mistakes, I figure out what's next, or I figure out what not to do next time. It's not the end of the world if maybe you screw up once or twice or many times.
Absolutely there. And it's actually really interesting that you say this, because I actually had on Facebook, I started a conversation the other day around like pretty much around this thing here. Like, how do you like kind of continue moving forward? And I think like I think it's really, really interesting. There's a couple different things here that I'd love to just explore really quickly. And one of the things that like struck me is like, you said like, if you make a decision and it doesn't work out, and part of that, and this is probably me speaking a little bit more on my behalf, is just that decision to make a decision, making the choice. Like it's kind of embedded in there, as opposed to let's say kind of trying to overanalyze or trying to say, how do I like, what's the right choice to make? It kind of feels like you're like, make a choice, see that through. And if that choice ends up not being exactly everything you want it to be, that's okay too. Own up to that and move forward. Am I getting that right there?
Yeah, that is right. But I mean, obviously, depending on the situation, it deserves a little bit more or less thinking through, right? Like there's some decisions in life that you actually should sit down and think and consider. And there's others where, like maybe overthinking is not going to help you and you just have to like do it. Right. But yeah, I think what you said captures what I was referring to.
And you had said earlier, and I feel like this is going to be a bit of a theme here, Claudia. I'm getting this sense here, but you said like, it took you some time to find what you liked. And even just going back to like the fitness thing, your suggestion was find something that resonates with you, find something that you like there. So can we talk a little bit about, like what is product design, and then B, like, well, let's start off with that. Let's start off with what is product design, and then like we'll go through the process of like maybe you can walk us through how you went through to find out what you like through owning your mistakes. So can you describe to us what product design is so we're all on the same page?
Of course, yeah. So product design is an area of digital design in which you collaborate with a team of different expertise like engineering and product management and different stakeholders within the company to build a digital product. And the product designer, at least in my current role and experience in the tech community, is the product designer is responsible for the experience. So how the application, how a user or a person would navigate through the application or the website or whatever the digital product you're working on is, and also how it looks and how it works. And there's a constant iteration, and listening to the person that is going to use your product, getting their feedback, integrating that feedback into how you design things, and then going back to them, sharing the work, and then getting their feedback again. So again, it's like this constant evolution of building a software based on the people that use your product, what they need.
Awesome. And can I ask you here, we're saying product designer, is there a difference between this? And maybe you can explain what the difference is between this and user experience, or are they one and the same?
Well, at least in product design, user experience is part of what we do. So like a product designer does have to, focus on user experience design, but I think in the past, or maybe in other industries, there's people are hired specifically on focusing on user experience design. And again, product design, covers a wide span of different parts of the design process in which, we have to be familiar with and work through.
Awesome. And would you mind just sharing with us like 2 or 3 other areas, just in case any employee is out there and they're thinking, oh, I thought I wanted to do user experience, but if I could do something that, incorporates user experience, but goes beyond and it might be product design, like just helping to paint that picture of what some of those other areas might be.
So some of the other areas within product design?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So I would say that user research is a big part of product design. User experience design is a big part of it as well. Visual design, interaction design, and I think interaction design. People categorize or isolate the different like roles of a product designer in different ways. Like you also have the prototype, which I guess you could consider part of interaction design. To be honest, I don't know exactly what, but I'd say those are like the main areas. So user research design, user experience design, visual design, and interaction design.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you so much there, Claudio. Like I'm expanding my knowledge as we go along. So I appreciate you just like kind of sharing that there and giving us an idea. So like, all right, what are all the different components that are involved in making the greatness that you do? So now that we have an idea as to what you do, we'd love to like just go back and understand your journey to get in here. Would you mind taking us back to the beginning of your journey, whenever you decide that journey actually started for you, and help us understand the steps that you took to get to this place?
Definitely, yes. So there's been a lot of different things that have happened over the past 4 years. So when I first realized design was what I enjoyed or had like a curiosity to learn more about design was during my last year in college, where I was at Baylor University. I was studying business, and I was, as a senior, I was part of an incubator program or an accelerator program in which you had an opportunity to start a company with 2 other colleagues, and you had, some seed money to start the company that you were going to start. And it was through that program that, I started a company, and with my other colleagues, I told them, hey guys, I'll take care of designing the logo for the company. And that's when I first, started getting into design. So, I downloaded Illustrator, which is a digital design tool that people use to make logos and make posters and postcards, etc. And when I was first using that tool, when I downloaded, they had like a 2-week free trial. When I was using that, I was like so fascinated with the tool that after using it, I was like, I would love to keep playing around with it or using it to, design other stuff. So as my senior year progressed, I started reaching out to friends and getting projects from them. So designing a poster for, like a salsa event or like a dancing event, or, getting a teacher and helping them out with, a project that they had, a little project. And slowly I started to get more experience like that. And my last semester in college, I enrolled, I had an extra spot for a class to take, and I decided to take a media design class. And it was that class that I think sealed or like confirmed my real interest in design, because I had a really great time in that class. I learned about other design tools. I became very good friends with my professor, and I'd say that she was my first mentor, and she helped me. She was the type of professor who was always, finding new things to explore or to test. And she told me, Claudio, there's this new tool, you should test it out. Or Claudio, you should maybe design this project in this different way, or try something new. Like she was always inspiring me or pushing me to do my best and to explore different areas. And so yeah, after I graduated in 2014, I knew that I didn't want to do anything in business, and I was trying to look. I decided that I was going to look for a job in graphic design. So when I first found out about design, I was very focused on graphic design, and I applied for jobs. I did not get any jobs, and to be honest, it was a bit hard for a business student right out of college looking for a full-time graphic design job. I can see how that was, a big factor. I didn't have a very big portfolio. My only portfolio was for like the 1 semester of work I had done. And on top of that, I'm a Mexican citizen. So the visa issue is another big barrier for international students. And so yeah, I did not find a job, but I had applied for a visa extension that enabled me to find a job in the field of study that I had done, which was, in my case, entrepreneurship. So I moved to Phoenix in August of 2014, where a friend of mine reached out, whom I grew up with. He reached out and he invited me to Phoenix to start a video production company with him. And he loves video editing and filming, and I was really into design, and I was starting to tinker with animation. So that was like a really good match. And he took care of directing, the films for our clients, and I took care of designing, the animations or the logo animation. And it was that interest in a mix of graphic design and animation that led me into my first, real freelance project with a software development company in Phoenix. And I worked with them for the following year and a half, even after I moved back to Mexico. And it was through working with them that I got more into digital design. So I got into interaction design. And what that means is I worked with them on building an application for their client, and I was responsible for this, like building the interaction. So when a user clicks on a button, like how does that animate and how does that move into the next screen? And also how do the application that I worked on was a cartoon application. So whenever the user clicks on the button, how does the character animate and move move his mouth and, interact with other characters? And that was my first project. And I got really into interaction design. And at the same time, I got really into programming, because to build the interactions, you have to program a little bit. So I got into programming, and then from there, the year passed. It was already 2015. I moved back to Mexico because my visa expired, and then the following month, a year and a half, I found a job with Parametro, which is the studio that you mentioned in my bio. I worked with them for 3 months as a web designer, and then after that, I continued freelancing, focusing more on web design and web development, and then through events and through community events, I'd say design events. I met a lot of different product designers, and I met JT, who's a director at Q, and I'm here. And then I would like to say another thing, that throughout those years as I was learning about design in college, I made a friend, a very good friend of mine. Back then, he was a designer prior to me even being interested in design. And throughout my journey into, discovering all these different areas of design, he's always been there. And, it was a friendship, right? But his advice and his tips on what to focus on or what new tool to use or how to deal with certain, situations that I lived through, his advice, which was, I consider him like one of my, the most important mentors in my journey so far. His mentorship was extremely crucial for me to navigate the freelance world and transition into the digital design world. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey.
Wow, Claudio, thank you so much for sharing here. And it's really interesting how you're able to progress through this, through your journey. And I think one of the things that's coming up here is the importance of mentors and the roles that mentors have played in your life, especially at the very onset of it, as you were just kind of discovering that this is what you actually liked. I want to give you an opportunity here. I don't typically do this, but if you had a chance to talk to that friend right now, if your friend was listening to this episode right now, is there anything that you'd love to tell this friend here? Just want to put it out there just in case, just to give you this platform, and then we can move on with the rest of the conversation.
Definitely. I mean, I talk with him very frequently, so I'm in touch, and he knows how thankful I am to, for all the advice that he's given me throughout the years, and all of his suggestions on, what tool to use or to start using GitHub when I was learning to program, or what to do when I quit my job in Mexico and started freelancing. It's very interesting I think for not only me see him grow as a designer over the years, but also him see me, transition into the role that he currently has or that he's had for a while, and see how I'm slowly learning and making my way through this interest of mine.
Awesome. Well, thank you there. Thank you very much for that. And I think so now we've gotten a chance to get a taste of your journey here. And, I think what will be really, really interesting to explore is to now get pretty specific and find some couple examples from your professional experience so we can get a clear grasp as to not only how you do the job, but how you, actually own up to your mistakes and continue to move forward. So, since life is not just a straight line of just success after success, would you mind walking us through a project or experience where you failed and the steps that you took to overcome it?
Definitely. So let me see. I think, there are a lot of different failures I've gone through. I'd say, so one of them, and I'm going to just play with what you mean by failing, because I think behind every failure, there's also something hidden, a success behind it. And let me illustrate that. So when I moved to Phoenix, and it took us a month and a half for my friend and I to find our first client in the video production company that we started. And, it was like failure after failure, like going door to door and telling them, hey guys, like, like selling telling them our spiel about the company and selling the services that we offered, and saying, like, getting the no, like constantly no. And then finally, after a month and a half, we found the first client. And we did the video. It worked out really well. We had a chance to travel throughout, like, around Phoenix and film the video. And then when it was time to deliver the video, or like turn it in, we were waiting at his office. He worked at a corporate office, and we were waiting at his office. He was a little bit late to the meeting. And as we were waiting, my friend overheard a conversation in the cubicle next door. And the conversation was, two people were talking about how they were looking for an animator for a project that they needed help on. And he told me to stand up. I wasn't listening, so he told me to stand up and just tell them that I was an animator and how I could help them. So I stood up, I went into the cubicle, and I told them, hey guys, how can I help you? I'm an animator. And they just like stared at me like, where, like, he just like, what's up? Like, what's up with this guy? So I told them, how can I help you? So they showed me the project, and that's a project that I mentioned about, the cartoon application that I worked on. And yeah, like they showed the project. They told me, like, here are the assets. Like, we really need an animator. So if you can, like, do a demo for us, like animate this first scene and share it with us, and then we'll tell you if, like, we're interested in hiring you or not. So that night I spent 6 hours working on it, and they told me, I spent 6 hours working on it. And then by the next morning I had a presentation and the video that I made. And I told them, like, hey guys, here's the video. Here are the things that I struggled with while working on it. Here's some of the things that I would improve next time, to like save time. So they hired me. And after 3 days, they told me, hey, Claudio, you know what? We're sorry, but we're going to have to find another animator that knows how to work with this other tool. And that's where I wanted to get to. Like, that point, it wasn't a failure, right? I mean, I had delivered what they asked me to, but that closing of the door of, that missed opportunity of, I don't know this tool. What I did was I spent that weekend learning just enough of that tool to, on Monday, come back and show them the same video with this new tool. And they were like, okay, like, we're going to hire you because you did that, but you're also going to take care of the programming. And, that and then that was another challenge, like the programming. And to be honest, I was failing at, like, the first week of, I told him, yeah, I'll do the programming, but I don't know how to do it. But if you give me the time to learn, I'm more than happy to learn that. So that following week, when I was struggling to learn the very basics of programming, I was about to give up. And I remember talking with my dad and telling him, hey dad, I hate programming. I'm struggling. Like, you have no idea how much I'm struggling. And you know what? Like, to be honest, I don't even like programming. I really like animation, and I'm probably going to tell him that I'm going to quit and I'm just going to not do it. And my father told me, before you do that, like, be honest with yourself and tell me, why do you not like programming? Is it because it's hard, or is it because you actually don't like it? And my response was, well, I don't know how to program, so I can't say I don't like it because I don't know how to do it. So my conclusion was, I'm probably not, I don't like it because it's hard. And he told me, Claudio, just stick with it. Just give it a couple more weeks or a couple more time. And I think in the future, this could benefit you. And yeah, like, so I struggled for a week or so more. And I got to a point where, I started understanding things started to flow, and I started to deliver things on time. And, like that, I think, again, like, that was maybe I didn't illustrate a failure, but my point is, like, I think the failure wasn't in, like, I was failing constantly, right? In those weeks, as I didn't understand things and I was frustrated. But then you get to a point where you stop failing, and then things somehow start taking off and start making sense. And I think it's like pushing through that failure to get to understand things and to, like, actually succeed. And by succeed, I mean, like, delivering your objective. And that's what's important. That's a small story that I think I learned a lot from. And looking back 3 years from now, like, programming is a very important part of my development as a designer. And I'm really happy that my father provided that advice and that I was able to follow his advice.
Claudio, this is incredible because, like, as I'm listening to this story, all I hear are different like different crossroads where you could have made a choice of either continuing onward or giving up, either learning what you needed to learn or kind of just saying, you know what, the cards, this wasn't meant to be. You know, you said that you didn't talk about a failure. You talked about 3 separate failures, and I appreciate you doing each and every one of them. You started out saying that, like, you know, you're out there and, you know, you're working with your friend and you're trying to sell this video production service. And for a month and a half, you were just hearing no's. You know, you were going out there and people just weren't taking it. But then you were able to turn that into like one client. And while you were there, another opportunity came up, and you, because you had continued onward, it put you in a place where you're in the room, physically in the room, to be able to make something to come of that. And then you go immediately from there into another part of, you know, what actually felt like a success. Like, you came in, you took things and you created something that night. Like, that was so impressive. Only to find out 3 days later that they were looking to take things in another direction. And then you came back again and said, you know what, I got this. And you I was sitting there, I was like, you redid the whole project in another tool. I think that is like so wild because, like, you know, so often it's like, I've already done it. They just don't want what I want. And it's like, you know what? You believe so much in yourself and in your skills that you just took this as an opportunity to continue that on. And, you know, it's really something special, the way that you continue to reach each of these roadblocks and go forward. So can I ask you here, like, and then we had the programming one after that, like, yeah, for those of us that may not, like, it may not look the same way, but we might run into a place where either we're facing rejection, or we are doing something that is like more difficult than we anticipated it to be. Like, what suggestions and takeaways do you have based on this experience to employees out there that are facing these similar kind of roadblocks? What advice would you give there?
Yeah, I think that when you face a roadblock, it depends on, you know, like, if that, you know, I'm assuming that the roadblock is there because it's impeding you from, you know, arriving at your objective. And I think, you know, like, talking to someone, you know, like, getting a different perspective on things, asking them what they think. One thing that I like about my father, which is why I usually go to him and to the friend that I started the company. Usually the reason why I go to them for advice is because they don't give me the answer that I want to hear. They give me the answer that is going to be best for me. And sometimes when you're in a roadblock, it's really hard to actually see what's best for you. Like, you think that just eliminating the roadblock as easily as possible is the best answer. But sometimes it's actually it's actually facing that roadblock, which is really hard at that moment. I think that's the best way to face it. And again, like, reaching out to people, they don't have to be your mentor. Like, it's just friends or family members that you think do a good job of, you know, like, giving good advice. And by good advice, again, is advice that they think will reward, like, be more than just the now. Like, it'll help you in the future in a way, and not just, oh yeah, just pull this weed out and you're done, rather than, wait, why is that weed in there, and how can we make sure that it doesn't happen again? Or maybe pulling that weed out is a huge opportunity for X, learning X or doing X. So yeah, I think reaching out to people is one way of, you know, like, getting a clear perspective on how to overcome that roadblock.
Yo, that is so great. Employees out there, reach out to people. And I really love this idea of, like, you know, finding those long-term solutions, not just saying, like, what is the weed, but, like, why is it here in the first place? And employees, you may not have the same kind of support system that Claudio did, but one of the things I love about this, Claudio, is that, like, it isn't a you just need one or two people, you know, like at least in the conversations here, it seems like you just have, like, a couple people who are really out there and that you can really trust. And employees, I want to invite you to come find those people and come be a part of something like this. Even if you may not have it on your day to day, we have the Employment community. It's the home for all the employees. Just go to employees.com, and just come get some kind of support. And I really like this idea of just, like, asking the tough questions and getting back, like, tough answers, not necessarily what you want to hear. Right. But I think that's best for you. So Claudio, thank you for that. Thank you for walking us through each of those roadblocks. And thank you. I also wanted to say thank you because you've also given me perspective on, like, what do I really mean by when I say roadblocks. I really thought that, like, you know, the roadblock impeding you from arriving at your objective is a great way to frame that. And that's how I'm going to kind of continue thinking of it going forward. So just thank you for that. You gave me a gift just in your response without even trying. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So let's go ahead now and just like flip things around. Like we want to spend some time, like this is enjoyment. We're all about the joy here. And I want to find some experience that brought you great joy in your professional journey. Can you tell us about your proudest professional moment? I like to think of it as like, a moment that you're so grateful for that you would never want to lose that memory again. And maybe you can just relive that memory with each of us.
I don't know if I have like this like super proud moment I have in my life, but I can share one recent one that I've had at Q. So it was the second project that I worked on after joining Q, and it was a relatively big and important project for the product that we're building at Q. And what I think was so successful about the project was like all the collaboration that goes on to build digital products. And, like there was a lot of communication, dialogue between, like the product manager and the design team and the design team and the engineers and the product team. So it was like this very collaborative effort to build this. And I think that's what that's something that I'm starting to learn that I really like about product design, is that design is not a thing that happens in isolation. Design is a process that happens through collaboration. So I think, sometimes we tend to see designers as like these like magicians or like these like people that work and come up with like very creative solutions. But at least in product design, that's not how things work. In product design, it's very important to have a team that you can work very well with to execute on ideas and on features that people that use your product need. And this project, I think it took what was it, like a month or a month and a half to work through. It was just constant meetings, constant iterations, constant clarification into whether we were all aligned, and whether somebody had feedback and we had to like modify certain things. And I think it was a great project, or a great moment in my time at Q that like reaffirmed my love for design, but it also reaffirmed my like why I enjoy working at Q and why I enjoy working with the people that I work with, because it like it's really nice when everyone's on the same page. I mean, I'm not saying that there weren't arguments and discussions. There were, definitely. That's part of the like collaborative process, but rather like in the end, like things worked out very well. And I think that's one of the moments that I think I learned a lot from over the very recently.
That's awesome. So can you share with us like something about that? So you're saying like collaboration and working with people is like key to being a great product designer. Can you share one of the things that worked really well to help facilitate that collaboration and made that collaboration like really come to life and be so successful?
Yes, of course. I think at least as a product designer, one of the key things of like successful collaboration on projects is making sure that the engineering team and the product team are very aware of the feature that you're working on from the very beginning. So making sure that there's meetings where, like you're explaining what you're working on, getting feedback from engineering to like make sure that what you're actually designing is not unfeasible and it's within scope of the project. And I think that was key. So making sure that you're scheduling meetings at the right, like very early in the process, to make sure that, like the engineering feedback is, like always there, because engineers, I think they do a great job of pulling down designers into like reality and telling them, hey, like that's a very beautiful thing that you're talking about, but that's not going to be like, it's not feasible to build that. Like maybe have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And then another thing that I think engineers do a great job of is they have a great understanding of the data and how data flows within an application. And, what that means is, like maybe you want to add a certain piece of information and they tell you, Claudio, like if you want to add that, like it'll take, I don't know, like this long for the page to load, or it'll take this long for us to actually get that data and put it into that page. So how about putting this information or that information? So that's part of the process that I think was great. That we did a good job of, like syncing up with engineering and product management, and also bringing in other stakeholders from outside the product team to make sure that what we were building fit in with their business processes. And so that's part of the collaboration that I'm referring to there.
Awesome. And it's interesting because in my mind, I'm trying to think through like how almost like from the inception of this product as an idea, or this project as an idea, like how you were involved and like who you were talking to, because you're bringing in different stakeholders and you're talking to engineers. Like I feel that this is kind of like it's a circular process, design, right? Because of all the iterations and multiple pieces of feedback. But would you mind just quickly walking us through, like, all right, if you got a new project tomorrow, generally speaking, in an ideal scenario, like how would that work so that if someone's like, oh, essentially, hopefully someone is working in another role, maybe they're not a product designer now, but they can take elements of what you're doing or how you approach your job as a product designer and think to how they've done it in their personal work, even if they've never had the term quote unquote product designer. So if we can get a chance to understand some of those elements, maybe that will be helpful to employees out there. Would you mind explaining new project?
Yeah, definitely.
Right now?
Of course. And actually, just by chance, tomorrow I actually do start another project. So I think it's perfect to, explain what exactly I'll be doing for the following week, for example. So depending on the scope of the project, it depends on how much time we focus on the different parts of the design process. So, but every project that we start at Q, we have to start with very clear business goals that we want to achieve. And those business goals are derived based on very clear user needs. So what do I mean by user needs? So for example, I'm going to invent something. Let's say that you have an application. I'm going to start over. So you need business goals, you need user needs, and then you also need metrics. So how do you measure whether the project was successful? And those three pieces of information, they are provided to the designer at Q by the product manager. So with those three pieces of information, the designer starts off what we call the discovery phase, where we start doing online research on, how are other products solving this problem that we're trying to tackle. Then we also start talking, at the same time, we start talking with different people within the company that the feature that we're building will impact them, or these people have a very good insight into what we're doing. So for example, if I'm working on adding a new email that will help clients give feedback for the product, I would like to talk to people that are part of the process of collecting feedback. So, they're called, I think, UX in the marketplace team, which is a team that takes care of working with our partners. So I think I messed that up, but anyway, so the team that takes care of actually getting that feedback, I would have to talk with them and ask them, hey guys, what's your current process? How does that work? If we're thinking about adding this new email into the product, how would you guys go about that? Or how are some of the things that you would consider or that we should take into consideration when designing this? So it's doing some online research on different products, doing internal research with different stakeholders that have a good insight into the product, into the project that we're working on. And then at the same time, starting to conduct user interviews to get a very current status of their, of their problem. So creating a script, scheduling meetings with our customers and asking them what's your experience doing this? What would you say is the best way for you to provide feedback for us? And getting insights from them to then, once we have a very, very clear understanding or a better understanding of the scope of their problem, we can start designing different solutions for how we can solve that problem. And then after we do that, we start going through some different iterations on, in this case, the example that I came up with, different email copies, different email layouts, different piece of information that we put in that email, and then share it with them and ask them, does this make sense? What do you guys think? Is there anything that you're missing? Or what's one way that you guys would be more willing to provide feedback, etc. And then once we have, again, that continual process, then we would start scoping the project. And by that, we mean start batching the work into different pieces. And the pieces have to provide enough value to be worth splitting out. And then like we would finalize designs, and then we would share the project with engineering for them to start building that, and continue getting feedback, and continue looking at how other features that other of our teammates are working on will impact what we're doing. That's kind of what's up ahead for me in the next couple of weeks.
Claudio, I am so happy that you spent this time like walking us through this here, because I really started to see in this process, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I can see it unfolded, and I think it really just it went from this idea to something that was really tangible. So thank you for walking us through and helping us see the amount of work and where all the collaboration and all the different touch points come into play, so that we can kind of think through it. It's really quite beautiful what you do here with design. And I appreciate you walking us through all that. So, I mean, we're at the end of our conversation here. I'd love to just see if you have any parting thoughts for us. And, if there was someone out there that was interested in becoming a product designer, or just taking another step further in their journey to enjoyment through employment, yes, what advice would you give them to take action on in the next 7 days?
Yeah, of course. Actually, just by chance, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, 2 employees at Q, they're not part of the design team or the product team, and they reached out to me and they told me, hey, Claudio, we're very interested in learning about design. Would you be open to grabbing some coffee and chatting with us? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So that's one of the things I would suggest. If there's designers at your company, or if you know a designer, reach out to them. You just grab a coffee with them, ask them how they started, what they like about design, what they do, and then so after so we grabbed coffee. We've got coffee several times now, and my suggestion was, so I shared the internal documentation that we have for how we run these design discovery process, and how we start a new project. And what I did was I shared that document with them, and I told them I think you guys can start practicing design by finding a problem in the role that you have, and seeing how you can come up with a solution to it. And I told them the solution doesn't have to be you don't have to design a web page or a UI, a user interface. You just have to come up with a solution. And I think that's the key to this, the first step into moving into design, to solving problems, or finding ways to making things easier for other people that you work with, or finding ways to making it easier for the customers that you're attending, or it's finding solutions to that. And that's what I did. I shared the document with them. I recommended one book to them to read, and the book is called The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. And that was the first design book that I read. I usually don't read design books, but that book helped me get a good insight into what design is, how designers think. So just to summarize what I just said, it's reach out to designers in your company, and ask them whether you can grab coffee with them, ask them how you can start designing, ask them for advice. Ask them if you can chat with them for a day or two, or you can be creative. You can ask them whatever you want. Another thing is to start reading design books, or start listening to podcasts, designer podcasts. Start reading. Another thing that I told them is start reading design blogs. So some of the best design companies in the world have blogs on medium.com. And that's something that I used to spend, or still spend, a lot of time reading through. So I read through their articles, and how do they think? How do they solve problems? What was their process? I just absorb as much information about design, and then you'll slowly start to get this curiosity and need to, download a software or start sketching ideas for an idea you have, or start sketching ideas for problems that you have at work to solve them. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would suggest.
Claudio, this has been fantastic. There's just so much insight that's come out of here, and just actionable insight there. So, I'm actually looking forward to reading some other books. And if you have do you have a design podcast that you recommend, seeing as a lot of my listeners are audio people? Maybe we can bring them onto the podcast one day and have a great conversation.
Yes, I would recommend 2. My favorite design podcast, which I've been listening to for the past 2 or 3 years, is called Design Details. You can find them on iTunes. You can find them on their network, which is called the the website is called spec.fm, spec.fm. They have a lot of different design podcasts. And actually the mentor that I talked about, he's one of the co-hosts of Design Details. So he's also finding ways of, like helping others and sharing other designer stories. And I think some of the designers that they interview in Design Details are like, some of their stories have been extremely important for me to like find inspiration or find like motivation on how to learn about design. So yeah, I would recommend Design Details. And I would also recommend High Res Podcast. They interview some of the top 25 designers right now. And they dive deep into very interesting topics. So yeah, those two podcasts I would recommend.
Awesome. So employees, we believe a lot in abundance here. And I want to make sure you have as much information as possible to continue moving forward. So, continue adding all these things to your toolkit here to help you continue to be successful. Continue apparently is the theme of where it is, but unfortunately we must bring it to a close. So, we'll actually invite you to continue the conversation over in the employee community over at employees.com. And I think Claudia, one thing that I'm going to try and do here is be a better product designer myself, and ask all of you employees to give me feedback. This podcast is a product here, and you're experiencing the current design, but you've also experienced at this point a number of different episodes. You can probably let me know what's been working for you, what isn't, and we can use that to continue to iterate and make better going forward. Hopefully, Claudio, I'm doing this in the spirit of design here, and trying to make things even better for each of you. So, with that, let's go ahead and end this conversation here. I really appreciate you taking the time, Claudio, to share your journey, share your experiences, share your expertise with all of us. It is incredibly, incredibly kind of you. And, we really just appreciate you for who you are and for your past experiences. And we get excited for what's coming for you in the future. We look forward to continuing the conversation, and we wish you all the best. Here's to experience and joy each and every day. Take care, Claudio.
Thank you, Nemo. You too. Have a great day.
All right, employees. So Claudio gave us very, very clear insight into how we can move forward. And so I want to make sure that we are able to take this aspect here and bring it to life. It's cool because he walked us through how he sees product and how he the phases that he sees and approaches each of his programs. So now you have that you can use in your back pocket. But this is only one approach to it. And when you're looking to move on to that next level of your career, I want to make sure that you have a couple of different tools in your toolkit to leverage. So let's go ahead and take advantage of the advice that Claudio gave us for action in our next 7 days by having a conversation with someone who is a designer, whether it's someone another employee, or someone you'll talk to for the very first time. Have that conversation and then come share with us one insight from that conversation within the Empjoyment community. It's the home of Employees, so you can easily get to it by just going to employees.com. That's EMPJOYEES.com. So employees, but with more joy in it. Get it? And we'll continue this conversation. So we want you to go out, talk to someone who's a designer. And if you're not interested in design, go to talk to someone who is solving a problem that you're interested in or is involved in a role that you're interested in. And just give us one insight from that conversation. Not complicated, but I also know that the simple things are often the hardest things to do. My goal is to help you to dream bigger than you've ever dreamed before and to take tinier steps than you've ever taken before. It's another quote from my coach, Rich Lipton. And the more I hear it, the more I realize this is what it's all about. All right. So with that here, I'm excited for all the great things that you can do, that you are going to do. And can you do me a favor? If you're finding value in this podcast here, can you tell one other person about this here? Can you help spread the Empjoyment movement and be a part of this here? Because it really is each and every one of us. And I look at the community, I look at the coaching, I look at the website, I look at the conversations that we have. And all of those things are all grown one person at a time. There are a lot of different ways that I could have chosen to build Empjoyment, but I really wanted to make sure that the people who are ready for this, the people who are hungry for this, the people who are ready to have their life change for the better and then help change other people's lives, they are the ones that are getting this and are providing the feedback and input into what it's going to take to make it better. So share this on social media. Tell at least one person who you really feel would benefit from listening to an episode about the podcast. And I would give them, pick a specific episode that really resonated with you and suggest that. In that small way, you can bring just a little bit more joy to someone's life today. And we'll be talking about this in future episodes. But one of the things that they say about joy is that when you're looking for it for yourself and you're focused on yourself internally, it's very difficult to obtain or attain. But when you focus on others and helping others, that joy and happiness comes to fruition far more easily. I thank you for letting me focus on you and helping you experience more joy each and every day. Remember, do the things that bring you joy. I'll talk to you later, employees. Take care.